Hey fans, this episode contains some sensitive subject matter. It was originally titled the B.G. Palmer story, and that's how it appeared when it was published in the September 2022 edition of Southwick's magazine. Now, it's one of the more shorter stories on the Southwick Time Machine, and like any of the written stories on the Time Machine, it's a living document that changes over time as new information presents itself or becomes available, or conflicting information resolved, and so forth. And as fans know, I note conflicting information in the author's initial research notes, but sometimes I put it in the main story itself. Anyway, you may see that there's some rather interesting coincidences in this story, so let's dive right into final steps, the B.G. Palmer story. So here we go. B.G. Palmer was a longtime resident of Southwick, Massachusetts. His full name was Beeman Goodman Palmer, but he went by B.G. and was sometimes known as Goodman. His middle name was his great-grandfather's last name on his mother's side. In other words, Beeman's mother's father. Hope that made sense. Anyways, B.G., he lived with his two unmarried older sisters, Dora and Laura, on the main street in the center of town, modern-day College Highway. Now, the Palmer home appears to be 457 College Highway, sometimes referred to as the Graves-Keenan house. And it's interesting to note that if that is the case, at least two other longtime owners of that house were women who, like Dora and Laura, never married. One of the owners was well-known Southwick teacher/attorney Mary J. Keenan. Anyone who knew her knew how incredibly smart she was. Now, Miss Keenan, she died on January 9th, 2020. Remember that date, more specifically the month and the day. It's also to note that the other unmarried woman, she died inside the home in January of 1928 at age 58. Anyway, B.G., he once conducted a combined store and post office. Later, he worked as a grocery clerk at C.A. Reed store in Southwick. That was located where Country Colonial Gift Shop is today. So as previously mentioned, B.G. and his sisters lived within walking distance of Reed's store on the opposite side of the street. So Charles Reed, he had a store there. It had living quarters. The main entrance to the store appears to have faced Depot Street, then called Broad Street, unlike Country Colonial, which faces College Highway. Now, it's interesting to note that the first telephone service in Southwick started in Charles Reed's store on August 11th, 1881. Anyway, years back, B.G. found himself in poor health and could no longer work. This upset him greatly as he was a hard worker. Thankfully for B.G., his devoted sisters, Dora and Laura, frequently checked on him as they did their best to care for their younger brother. Sadly, B.J.'s condition worsened following an operation. Sometime around 1898, he became despondent and could barely, if ever, leave the house. Around 3 a.m. on August 25th, 1900, one of his sisters woke, and when she went to check on him, she found his room vacant. She noticed the doors leading from the passageway to the shed were open, so she went to investigate and stepped outside into the darkness onto the grass. She only went a short distance when she found her brother's body. His throat had been slit with a razor, his jugular vein wholly severed. Footprints leading to and from a brook behind the Palmer house led authorities to believe B.G. tried to drown himself, but the water proved too shallow, so he returned home, got a razor, and finished the deadly deed. He was only 58 years old. It's interesting to note that Laura Palmer died on December 23, 1907, and Dora followed shortly after on January 9, 1908. Neither sister ever married. You can read Final Steps, the B.G. Palmer story, on the Southwick Time Machine at www.southwicktimemachine.com. The complete story is there, as are any edited out portions in the author's additional research notes. Did you happen to notice any strange coincidences in the story? If so, drop a comment below. Stuff like that just fascinates me. You never know where the Southwick Time Machine will take you, so hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more historical curiosities as we continue our mission of preserving history through storytelling. Thank you for watching.